I used to do lots of things.
I used to do things and I'd say things and Jesus I was evil. Take things and break things and Jesus I was evil. I never shook babies.
Hey,
Hello there, my friend.
hello, my friend. Los Angeles is still burning, so I'm still up here.
Yeah, what's the news down there?
It seems to be getting better, but there's a new round of winds that are picking up. That it's supposed to get pretty bad through tomorrow.
Mm,
So that's why I was like, okay, I'll stay an extra couple days.
okay.
But so far it doesn't seem to be impeding progress containing the fire yet. So at least not too much. So yeah, yeah, I mean it's crazy. Two of the fires are the second and fourth largest in California history, apparently, at the same time. So it's been crazy. But
That's so terrifying, dude.
yeah, I know. But luckily, the area that I live in doesn't seem to be too affected yet.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, did it hit Highland Park and then
No, luckily, the closest fire, it's still a ways away from being fully contained. But distance wise, it doesn't seem to be getting closer. So we'll see. But my main thing was that they might be shutting down the power, and I have an online based job, so that would impact that a lot. And also just some freeways. I've been hearing more talk about closing down some freeways, so I don't.
Yeah, traffic's not bad enough in California.
Exactly, yeah. So I was like, maybe I'll just stay here. Start heading down like when things are supposed to get safer. So
Are you seeing any like hometown friends or anything like that? I don't know. Are they still around or no?
Yeah. I did see a few, and then I also saw some family. So it's weird. There's a little bit of survivor's guilt on my part because on the stand-up period has actually been kind of fun. It's been nice, like catching up with friends and family and stuff. So I've had a pretty nice
It's like close enough. Like that's still pretty far. California's huge, but you're not from like Michigan or something.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
right.
No. Yeah, man, let's get into it. Yeah, I've been thinking about Jerry Springer lately.
Yeah, we're gonna have like a relaxed fit episode today.
Yeah. Well, the Jerry Springer thing popped up on my radar because I had heard about the documentary that came out recently. I think it's called Fights Camera Action.
Yeah.
So, and then I also wrote a short article for the website I work for. So it was like 7 times that Jerry Springer appeared as himself on other sitcoms. So I was kind of thinking, so I was like, oh yeah, I used to watch Jerry Springer a little bit when I was a kid. This, such a scandalous show, and it's something that
Yeah, I was gonna ask, did you watch Springer and these sort of shows?
A little bit, like if I was home sick, from school, then like, yeah, cool, get to watch Jerry Springer. I wasn't like a regular viewer, but I was definitely very much aware of it growing up. So,
yeah, I feel like I watched it with my cousin. I was gonna say my gay cousin. He is gay.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that's not important. But they do kind of like, dishing it out and this kind of shit. So, thank you, Mickey. I don't think he listens, but I remember he really, whenever he would stay over, he would really like Springer, and we would watch that. And then there was like Maury. Maury kind of made me sadder, I think. All I remember from Maury is the paternity tests. And those just kind of made like, they're very funny, but it's also very sad.
Yeah, seriously.
Where Springer was just like, you're a Klan member, you're in the Nation of Islam, let's put him on a stage and see what happens. And that's just kind of like, that's just like the modern sideshow, like the modern circus.
Yeah.
Not that circuses don't still exist, but it's just like kind of modern circus. Like, let's get these freaks together and just let them at it and see what happens. I like Jerry. I think he's the. I'm trying to say he's Jewish without saying that. You know what I mean? He's just kind of like, I'm going to toss this in here. Like, I'm just going to instigate it.
Yeah.
and he's like, she called you a whore. What do you think? And it just shit like that.
So I believe he actually is Jewish.
No, I know.
So actually, did you notice he was born in London during World War II to Jewish refugees escaping the Holocaust?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I knew he was the mayor of Cincinnati.
Yep.
And he famously got caught paying a prostitute with a check, which is just all time move. It reminds me of the guys who, I can't remember what terrorist attack it was, if it was the 93 bombings, World Trade. I don't remember. I don't know. I don't think it was 9/11. Might have been, but they got caught because one guy like drove a truck back to get the deposit. It's like, you just could have foregone with the deposit and you might have gotten away with it, or at least like gotten away. And he like couldn't help. I don't think it was McVeigh. I can't remember if it was Muslims or white supremacists, but one of those two.
Yeah.
And then they got caught. It's like, that's what the Jerry Springer reminded me of with the check. Like, dude, you paid a prostitute with a check. Dude, it's unreal. I love it so much. It's unabashed, and it's America. Paying a prostitute with a check is America.
Yeah, and I like how he. I'm just looking at that real quick. Springer was elected to the Cincinnati City Council in 1971. In 1974, Springer resigned from the council after admitting to soliciting a prostitute. He ran for the office in 1975, winning by a landslide. So it didn't hurt.
I love it.
That's good.
Yeah. Man. Oh wait, he won after that?
Yeah, after the prostitute thing.
Shit. And that wasn't when he was mayor. That was when he was on the city council.
Yeah.
I think that's great. And also, I mean this sincerely. Cincinnati's a great city. Like, I'm a big fan of Cincinnati. Whenever there's always like a Twitter thread, like top, like most underrated city, like I pretty much always say Cincinnati. I think it's very cool. So highly recommend. It feels the factoid about it. I don't know if this is true, so you can fact check me, but it's considered the first American city, which is to say New York, Philly, Baltimore, Boston, Savannah, those are all colonial cities. So they're older, but this Cincinnati was the first city that was built like when America became America. Might not be true. I don't know. That's what I've heard. I think that's pretty cool because it does feel very old. And the downtown's really cool. And I like where the stadiums are, and there's really good food. And I highly recommend Cincinnati.
All right. Well, the reason we're bringing Jerry Springer on is because this article that showed up in the Free Press. It's called "Jerry Springer was trash, but he was honest." So I just want to read the first couple opening paragraphs real quick. Well, there's been all this controversy about the fights, says Jerry Springer, clutching a microphone and wearing an ill-fitting suit. Well, today we have a love story. Please meet Mark. He's been together with his wife for 10 years and married for the last 5. Please welcome to the show, Mark's wife. A horse walks onto the stage. The crowd bursts into a mixture of jeers and applause. It was 1998, and the media had already smeared Jerry's show for being immoral and trashy, yet here he was, upping the ante. He didn't care about his viewers thinking he was a good person. He cared about giving them what they wanted, and what they wanted was to see Jerry Springer talk to a guy who fucks horses.
Well, yeah, of course I read that. And was that true? Like, that
was a real episode.
Not that the guy was. I understand some guy getting married, but like, does he bang the horse?
I don't know.
I don't know if that was just in here for effect, because that, I think, totally, a guy married to a horse, obviously not legally, but saying like that's kind of funny. Like, all right, he's married to a horse, he's banging the horse. I mean, that's disgusting. Do you remember the Mr. Hand viral, like old internet? You remember that clip? You would know if it's a guy who gets fucked by a horse.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, this is like old, like we grew up, our generation. This is like internet, I guess 1.0, maybe 2.0. I forget, but we're talking like early 2000s internet. I regret, by the way, I'm not a fan of gross stuff. Like we even talk about horror movies. Like I'm not into just the really gory stuff. I love horror, but I don't like the really gory stuff. So I was never one of those guys who would watch what was that website where you watch people die? like not in real time, but like it would be recorded deaths. Like I don't like that stuff.
Yeah,
I don't like gross things. I never like toilet humor.
Right.
I don't. But this is a guy getting fucked by a horse, and he does die. By the way.
Shit.
Yeah. I regret seeing it.
Yeah.
Like usual, you're in like 8th grade,
Yeah.
9th grade. You have nothing better to do, so you're watching shitty videos on the internet.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
And he died, and he was like a horse. Rogan, I know, has talked about him a bunch. I don't know if he died that time, but he died from a horse banged him and just ruptured his innards.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So I hope this guy's not doing that for 25 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
98, but
so anyway, I'll just skip it because it just describes Jerry Springer's show, and I'm sure most people who are listening have heard or seen the show. So it's talking about the documentary that just came out recently. The documentary portrays Springer as a reluctant and ultimately repentant participant in his own success. The real villain, we are meant to believe, was his producer, Richard Dominic. But Jerry was on the air for nearly 30 years. He knew what he was doing. They all do. Oprah, Dr. Phil, Andy Cohen, and nowadays a million different podcasters, YouTubers, and TikTokers. But unlike most of the others, Jerry didn't hide behind some sort of pretense like empathy, activism, or education.
Yeah.
Let's start with his contemporaries. Oprah Winfrey was a carnival barker who pretended to be a therapist. Victim of incest, face ripped off by a chimp. What's the worst thing that's ever happened to you? Tell Oprah every detail while she holds your hand on a couch. It was Oprah who pioneered the confessional approach to television. As a Sunday Times reporter noted in an interview with her in 1999, which is included in Jerry Springer Fights camera action, Oprah hit back. Confessing and bearing your soul is one thing, bearing your penis is another. Yeah, but
I agree. I love this sentiment because it's so true. Like they all do the same shit, and I remember, it was Dr. Phil. And it was the guy who
dressed up like him, got hobos to fight each other.
Yeah, bum fights again. We're talking like early internet, not cool. Not cool, but very funny. And the guy went on, and it was like, you're using. I forget what like Dr. Phil had him on to be like, you're you have people at their worst and you record them for money, and he dresses up as Dr. Phil, be like a look in the mirror type thing. And it's very good. And it's true. Like Oprah and can I do a quick aside on chimps? 0 out of 10, F- animal. I cannot stand chimps. They are the most horrific animals I've like ever heard of. They will. So this is a PSA. Chimps will they know how to torture us, which I don't like snakes. I'd rather be trapped with a snake than with a chimp for a certain amount of time. Like chimps are horrendous. They will. I don't even like repeating the stuff that they'll do, but I mean, rip your face off is part of it. They'll they know what we need. Let's say what appendages we need, and what organ, they have that understanding where it's not about food or even about protection, it's about torture. And I would never even be near one, and because they're also superhuman in strength, so if they snap, they'll just wreck you. So don't go near chimps, no matter if they're at some sort of a live TV show event, or I mean that actually was a plot point in the Jordan Peele movie. Nope. Yeah. That was a point where a chimp went berserk on again, this was fiction, but a chimp went berserk on a sitcom and killed everyone except one person. And then that kind of is a trajectory for that character's motivation in this movie. But but that's based off of real shit where these chimps will just attack you, just ruin you. And then you'll go on Oprah at least, so you'll get a sedan.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, it's because I mean, you see all these adorable chimp videos on YouTube and things, but it's that's just a handful of them. Don't invite them to your house to watch Jerry Springer. So don't become friends with them.
Don't go near them. I'm serious. They're horrific creatures, and I don't know. I mean, they'd probably say the same thing about us, but
Yeah.
fair. um, but at least you could try and reason with the human. You have a chance. You at least, I don't know. I'm getting sidetracked because they really creep me out. But yes, the sentiment I agree with that Jerry was at its core what other shows like put on a facade would have a veil. You know, he would pierce that veil and it would be like, look, I'm giving you what you want. It's simple market capitalism of like, if people really thought what my detractors thought, I wouldn't have a show.
Exactly.
It's that simple.
Right.
In the end, I mean, he's not like, I guess I think it'd be a stretch. He's not hurt. Like people are going on there voluntarily.
Yeah.
They're not being arrested and taken on there, kidnapped.
Yeah.
And it's trash, but so is a lot of entertainment that I think people could look at. And I don't believe this, but I think people could look at like football or boxing and say like they're scrambling their brains for your entertainment, but those are highly revered. And I agree, great sports. I actually love boxing. I don't like UFC, but I love boxing. And they can say the same thing about that, or horror movies, or any of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and but they're not hiding behind this veneer of like, oh, but it's a civilized activity. It's like, no, it's brutal. It's competitive. And we make a lot of money off of it. There's a certain purity to these types of things. It's just funny, like when you look at other daytime talk shows, especially in the 90s, you had like Ricky Lake and Maury, Montel Williams and Oprah. It's like they could be almost as trashy. Like, even though they didn't have, nudity exactly, didn't have naked people running around throwing pies at each other or whatever. Yeah. But like, there was still like, it's like, yeah, it's all like infidelity. It's all like weird fetishes and stuff like that. So it was still, but again, it's like, well, but we're trying to help them. It's like, yeah, this is like deeply private stuff though. Like this is Springer. There's like that purity, like the honesty of like, hey, we found some weirdo and they want to come on the show. You guys, so
I do remember. So I think when I was a kid, I think I was a pretty gullible kid, or I tell this story. I'm bringing up my cousin twice in this episode. Or no, because I told him this. That's why. But I remember one of my friends. One of you met him, Nick. One of my best friends to this day. I think he told me once, like, San Francisco's a gay city, and I thought, again, with no like malicious intent, I was just like, oh, like that's where the gay people live. And that's cool. Like they live there. And if you're gay, it's like, oh, okay, you go to San Francisco. Like that's all I thought when I was like, I'm talking like 7 or 8 years old, 9 years old. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like that's where the gay people live. So I kind of that. So I remember watching Springer, and I think it was filmed in Connecticut.
Yeah.
Right.
Connecticut for a bit, but I think it was Cincinnati before that though. But yeah.
I think I remember it in Connecticut. And I remember like, I guess I didn't put it together that these people were from all over the place. And they'd get flown there. I thought Connecticut was like this insane place where all these people lived.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, damn, I'm going to avoid Connecticut.
So this goes on. And this really ties into my deep frustration with the whole like mental health, obsession in recent years. And I'm not saying mental health is something that we should not be concerned about, but there's this, young people are just like fetishizing it, and it's turning into like a whole industry. And with and now it seems like there are people who are putting out stuff that might actually not actually be good for mental health. But anyway, this ties into this. Is literally stripping down your guests really less exploitative than stripping them down emotionally? I suspect many Americans are more comfortable hearing the details of someone's horrific rape on Oprah than seeing genitals on the Jerry Springer Show, which says a lot about the culture Oprah helped create. Her popularity depends on the reassuring lie that exposing your innermost traumas and insecurities for public consumption is self-empowerment, not exhibitionism. Pornography, which the Springer Show bordered on at times, is older than the written word. Trauma porn, which Oprah helped popularize, is not. And it's pernicious because it masquerades as self-help. As Free Press contributor Abigail Shrier argues in her book, Bad Therapy, we live in a culture that encourages people to dwell on and even publicize their own trauma, which only makes it harder to escape. That is Oprah's legacy. And it's like, shit, I never really considered that as much, but I think there's a lot of truth to that, man.
Yeah.
I'll go on here. Then there's Dr. Phil, an actual psychology PhD who used his show to humiliate his guests, many of them children, for the benefit of a jeering audience. He billed himself as one of the most well-known and trusted mental health professionals in the world, and his show as providing the most comprehensive forum on mental health issues in the history of television. But though Dr. Phil has faced scrutiny both on air and off the air, from a Me Too scandal to critics who say that his particular form of psychotherapy is unethical, he's never been publicly reviled at the same level that the way Springer was. Dr. Phil's veneer of credentialed respectability was all for was all some people, including members of my family, needed to justify tuning into his show guilt-free, and they wouldn't have been caught dead watching Springer.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
That's a good point. Like he has the doctor honorific, and it's like, oh no, this is fine. That other stuff is trash.
Yeah, exactly.
That's for like Hicks, but like this stuff is hard hitting therapy talk. We're actually improving the lives of people. It's like, no, it's all entertainment.
Yeah, and so getting back to that guy who went on a show who dressed up like him and the bum fights guy, as soon as they showed a montage of what this guy does, Dr. Phil cut him off the show. It wasn't like he tried to like reason with him or find out.
Oh, did he kick him off the show?
Just get off my show. It's like, okay, now this is turning into like Jerry Springer shit. It's just sensationalism. You're not here to like.
Yeah, do you know what I'm laughing about? Is is it Adam Ray?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Dr. Phil. We're kind of doing an inside joke here, which is really bad television. But you should watch. Is that his name? Adam Ray.
Adam Ray is his real name. Yeah.
Yeah, the comedian. He does an amazing Dr. Phil.
Yeah, he's been on the Kill Tony podcast a lot, and he's pretty damn hilarious.
Can I talk to you, Mark? Tom, can I talk to you, Tom? All right. Anything else you want to talk about? This did bring me back a little.
Yeah. This is an interesting topic. Another way to make viewers feel less guilty is to take them on a safari where they can view human spectacle. Educate themselves about the lives of less fortunate. What viewers are implicitly assured is a natural, non-exploitative habitat, the home. That's what TLC does. In reality, TLC is a Barnum and Bailey style freak show replete with dwarves, fat ladies, Siamese twins. Not unlike the big tents of yore, TLC pats itself on the back. My 600-pound life is supposed to be about a weight loss journey, right? Not just an excuse to gawk at people eating themselves to death. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
who wrote this?
This is River Page. They are a regular contributor to the Free Press. They've done some other good articles.
Are you using they as in they're
just because? Oh, it's a dude. I didn't because I don't know. River is yeah. Because I've heard it used both as a male and female name, so I didn't.
Yeah, the only I know. I only know them as males. River's Cuomo, right?
Oh yeah, and River Phoenix.
River Phoenix, yeah.
But here, I'll just read the last couple of paragraphs here. Americans want this sort of content and will always find a way to get it. Even if all these shows go off the air, the internet will stand by, ready to fill the void. We have watched YouTube anorexic Eugenia Cooney starve herself, gawped as SoundCloud drill rappers shoot each other on Instagram Live, and stared as Chris Chan, a severely autistic cartoonist and the most documented person in history, allegedly raped his dementia-addled mother. Yeah, I know.
I don't know any of these people.
I've heard of Chris Chan, but I know.
Really?
I know the name. I knew that there's some controversy around that person, but I don't know anything else about him. So, yeah. I know now this makes Jerry Springer sound like Saturday,
seriously,
Saturday morning cartoon. Like this is human beings, all of us, are voyeurs by nature to one degree or another. Some of us just need a pretense to indulge the part of ourselves that can't look away from the train wreck. Oprah made us feel morally superior. Dr. Phil made us feel like he was helping families, and Andy Cohen gave us a way to look down on the rich. Jerry Springer didn't try to reassure us we were good people for wanting a freak show. He never pretended to be anything he wasn't, and there's something honorable about that. He was a trash broker, but a uniquely honest one.
Are you going to watch this documentary?
I might, just because I mean, like this, and then the other article I wrote just kind of rekindled my interest in him. And so, like, I mentioned it to my mom, and she goes, "Oh, that was such a trashy show." But she goes, "I liked him though. he seemed like a nice guy. He seemed like compared to the crazy people, he always stayed like he was always just the straight man, and I just kind of like that about him. There's something wholesome about him.
Yeah. Do you remember Donahue?
Vaguely.
Donahue was the same thing as like it was like Jerry Springer, but not as intense. Like Kerry Lake, I feel like Maury. He actually got like canceled for opposing the Iraq War.
Oh wow!
Like, literally, his show canceled because
shit.
he was like a pretty early vocal critic of the Iraq War. Yeah, man, Springer ruled. I kind of think it sucks if he's backtracking on it though. Like one, I think that shitty period. Like even if I agreed with his critics, like you made. I mean, he's a multi-millionaire, right? Like he has to be.
Yeah.
Like it's easy now to be like, oh yeah, no, that was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. All right, you can give the money back. Like I kind of hate that shit. But also he didn't do anything wrong. Like if him, it would have been. If not him, it would have been someone else.
Yeah.
It probably would have been more intense. Like the internet, I think, is so much less regulated. I mean, it is so much less regulated, and that means people will do like shoot each other, sexual assault, like that sort of stuff, and just put the worst that's out there, for views, especially now because so much of social media is based on your eyes remaining on the page.
Right.
It's also advertising, but it's a lot of like how long people interact. And then there's that incentive, which changed. I don't know how long ago they changed the algorithms, but it became much more about interaction. And by nature, people interact more with things they disagree with and find abhorrent. So that just feeds the algorithm to put more, teens acting recklessly and a lot of racial stuff and a lot of violent shit. And that just, I think, is poisoned. And it's poisoned a lot of people. So yeah, by the standards of today, like Springer seems so innocent.
Yeah.
It was just like, these people are weird. You be the judge and let's just put him out there. And again, they went on willingly. What the other person I was thinking of, who I would hate to see Jerry go. First of all, how old is he?
I'm not sure. I know he died, I think last year or a year and a half ago.
He did die recently, right? I was actually he was a, it's a big deal to be given like the king of a parade in New Orleans, a Mardi Gras parade, like elite. And he was one of them when I was there. I have a picture of him.
That's coool.
Yeah, I forget which one it might have been.
He was 79.
Okay, he was 79. Yeah, Endymion maybe or Muses. But what about? So and then we'll move on after this. What about Howard Stern? Like, did you watch that growing up?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. That
was big. Like me and my brother watching it, and then we hear our parents coming in the basement. Like, yeah.
But seemed like Springer was a pretty left-wing guy, but it didn't seem like he commented on culture war stuff. And I'm curious about what so much of his show would be like, how it would be viewed in the eyes of like a pretty identitarian type of person these days. Like, would they? Because I mean, like he had like members of the Klan on, he had like Nazis and stuff, but obviously he wasn't celebrating them. But it's also like, hey, let's. But I am curious about how his stuff will hold up in this.
Well, they're not the most reasonable people, so probably not well. They would say you're literally platforming them by giving them the stage, but it's platforming and then showing how dumb they are.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like it's making fun of them without. Like it's giving them the rope to tie the noose, put around. So it shows how like dumb and silly they are.
Yeah, and also they were laughed at by the audience. Like it wasn't like
the audience would usually rip on them.
Yeah,
it's very, very funny.
I do like how so his show was once labeled by some critic as the worst TV show ever or something like that, and then he started opening the show with that. He goes, hey everybody, welcome to the worst trash, welcome to the worst show on TV or something like that.
Yeah.
So I he just kind of leaned into it, like, yeah, I know what we are, and I'm not trying to hide it.
And then the head security guy got a show, Steve Wilkos.
Oh wow.
Yeah, you didn't know that? Yeah, Steve. Oh. I forgot what it was. I think it was called the Steve Wilkos Show, and he got the same thing. And I don't know, man. You can't match Jerry. He's got the je ne sais quoi. Je ne sais quoi. He's great. Big fan.
All right. Yeah. So, yeah, I might check out that documentary because it sounds pretty interesting. It's kind of taking me back a bit. So,
Yeah, I think I'm gonna watch it too.
yeah.
All
All
right.
right. So, the next article that we're bringing up here is the Charlie Hebdo thing.
Charlie Hebdo thing.
Yeah, that thing. So when did that happen? So was this 10-year anniversary?
Yeah, 10
of that?
years. It happened January 2015.
Yeah. So this is something that that's been brought up, and I don't remember hearing too much about it when it happened. I think it just wasn't really plugged in. I was online very much, but like in the year or so after that, I think that's when I started kind of getting into sort of like the IDW and the heterodox type of things, and hearing them talking a lot about this. And I think that was kind of hearing the aftermath of that kind of contributed to my sort of, I don't know, political awakening or my heterodoxness coming out.
This was a big one for me too. This was like there's a very not a lot of issues are black and white, and this is one of them. Like there's the people who make art and cartoons and satire, and then there's the people who kill those people.
Yes.
And if you're on the other, like I remember I had been, like I said, I always like to criticize the past me, but also give myself credit where credit's due. And like I was definitely a left-wing person when this happened. I was like a Bernie. I was pretty early into Bernie, maybe not this early when this happened, but I remember being into Bernie when like the average young voter didn't know who he was.
Right.
I was definitely left, but I was always very critical of like the Muslims get a pass, and I was like, wait, what? Like this makes like their views are the most conservative, fanatical views that are in really any like have any sort of power in the world. Like they run countries and they have huge terrorist cells and they kill people in the street, and you're gonna not like it's all this bullshit cultural relativism. And that was a big turning point for me too. And it kind of like solidified me. And that I was like, oh, wait, like a lot of people on this side are actually nuts too.
Yeah.
I was always very critical of that. And I was definitely one of those people who had like the Je suis Charlie picture on whatever Facebook was probably then.
Yeah.
And I guess, do you want me to read some of this? I'm happy.
Yeah. Real quick, maybe we should just kind of summarize what that event was.
Yeah, if you don't, I guess maybe some people don't know about it. So yeah, in January 2015, Charlie Hebdo, which means Charlie Weekly in French, is still, but it was it's a satirical cartoon magazine, right? Pretty small, like not this. We're not talking the New York Times, the Washington Post, anything here. This is a small illustrator, and they would rip on like most legit free speech people. Like they would rip on everyone. They'd rip on Catholics. They'd rip on atheists. They'd rip on Muslims, Jew, like every sort of person.
Yeah.
And they would draw Muhammad, and that's what got them killed, literally. So
because there are numerous sects in Islam that do not depict Muhammad imagery like that.
Like conservative. I mean, I think that it does vary, because I know we've talked about the Ham line, I think it was college, where like there have been Muslims hundreds of years ago who drew Muhammad and drew other figures, because like the really, really strict ones, like they don't depict anything. That's why a lot of Islamic art is calligraphy and architecture. A lot of it is very beautiful. I lived in southern Spain, and there's a big Moorish influence there. And, the Alhambra and Granada and Seville and Cordoba, like a lot of it is geometric, and that's very beautiful. But because they wouldn't depict animals or humans or things like that, because that's left up to God. But the really crazy ones, if you draw like even if you draw like a stick figure and just put Muhammad above it, like that's blasphemy. And these men and women were gunned down in the street and in their office by, and what's so scary about this were like guys of Algerian descent. I can't remember if they're French Algerian or just Algerian, which obviously is a big connection there because that was a French colony, and they like owned a bar or something. Like that's what is scary about the show. Like it's not always the guys who you would think. and they, with assault weapons, just gun down cartoonists in the street. I can't imagine to this day why anyone would even like begin to talk about why that's okay or even understandable. Like those views are not, they do not comport with Western values. And those people should be removed from society and never allowed back in, because we've determined over centuries, but we have determined that this stuff is allowed. It's not a death sentence to draw someone's sacred cow. That's not part of our civilization, and that will only deteriorate our civilization for these dumbass, talked about last week, these dumbass, usually white liberals who support like that. They're the reason that we lose the race war, because they'll support burqas and whatever sort of crazy, like, again, the most conservative religious shit that if you just made it Christian instead of Muslim, they would be the biggest critics of it. But if you make it Muslim, they're cool with it, and that shows they have no real values. Like it's solely about, and last thing I'll say about this is, like, Hitchens has talked about this because he was an atheist and he was a I think a Marxist, maybe.
Like
he dabbled. I don't know exactly. I'm not a historian on Hitchens. I'd like to read more of him, but he was like, no, like, I think when he associated more with the left, like the far left, he would say like, look, it was anything to take down. Like if it was immigrants, if it was Muslim, like it was anything that wasn't the status quo, that wasn't like white British civilization, which is so dangerous. And I think a lot of people, it's like the gays for Palestine shit. It's like the gays for Gaza, like you guys would get thrown off the tallest building in Gaza. Like you would be cannon fodder. And I don't think they realize that because they're dumb.
I mean, and as the so what we're also referring to here is, this is in spikedonline.com. So it's an interview with Charlie Hebdo's editor-in-chief, Gerard Biard. He's a French guy, so I can't fully pronounce it, but as he talked about, though, in this interview, Charlie Hebdo is a predominantly left-wing publication, and so they're pretty secular. So of course they'll make fun of, like, hardline religious people, and they'll make fun of conservatives and things like that. But I think that was sort of the thing that kind of contributed to my sort of heterodox political awakening, where it's like, as he talks about in there, where it's like you had a lot of Western liberals saying, it's messed up what happened to Charlie Hebdo, but
and then the rule is you always forget, just take away everything that comes before the but. Like that's
exactly
not, that's
but
not,
the cartoon was offensive,
right? But the cartoon was offensive, but this is their culture, but they're in our culture, and
exactly.
Like, and me, I'm such a staunch defender of France. I say that unironically. Like, I love France. I love French culture. I think France is the epitome of Western civilization. And I think America and French both define Western civilization in different ways. I think we're the two best examples of Western civilization. I think we do some things better. I think they do some things better. But like, if it would just, like, France needs to exist as France. And I do like the pushback. I think that unlike the British, who I think are way too deferential, like they've said that the British embraced multiculturalism, where the French embraced assimilation, and they both have their issues, and we do it pretty well. Like, that's one of the things we do better than both of them. We kind of do a mix. I think there are issues with both sides of that, with multiculturalism and assimilation, but I'm much more a proponent of assimilation than multiculturalism, because if your culture is good and you're proud of it and it's been replicated around the world, like the French Republic, like the French ideals, like France helped create America. If it wasn't for France, we wouldn't exist.
Right.
Or that's what historians believe. So I think that then you should assimilate to that culture if you want to benefit from it, where the English have just let their culture be taken over in so many different ways.
This was a terrific interview, and there's also a video interview of it as well. the one that I sent you was just a transcript of it. But yeah, but then it was pretty inspiring hearing him talking about the need for artists to offend, especially talking about from like an old school left wing position and not like the sort of like hand wavy. Yeah, and it's funny. Like he even talks about this about which ties into our talk about we have never been woke, where he goes, yeah, it's like the modern left has abandoned the working class, has abandoned regular people, and it's gone to it's started focusing more on attracting middle class and upper class wealthy people. And I was like, oh shit, it's happening in France too, man. That sucks.
Yeah. I think I mean, we tend to lead the world in like, that's why like there were Black Lives Matter shit in countries that don't even have like a black population, have no history of slavery or discrimination or anything like that, because they do tend to, and it was very funny, like France was blaming us for le wokism, as they called it. And it was like, yeah, all this shit comes from like Foucault and Derrida and these jackasses during the 60s and 70s that our intelligentsia thought were cool. The Simone de Beauvoirs, like that whole group, Jean-Paul Sartre, and then that infected our education system that then went back. So it's kind of like we're giving it back to you guys. Now you're dealing with it. And it's bigger now because we're America and everything's bigger.
Oh yeah. So I just want to read this part of him, a part about him talking about the day of the attacks. So Spiked asks, let's move on to the 2015 attacks. What do you remember about that day? Where were you and how did you find out about what had happened? I was away in London. I found out through a phone call. I didn't know what was going on at all. I was receiving constant calls asking, what's happening? And I had no idea. Then I went to the French embassy. It wasn't until I got there that I understood what had really happened. I came back to Paris that same evening to meet the survivors. Then we met again the next morning on the 8th of January. We decided to immediately publish a new issue to make what would later be called the Survivors issue. It showed Muhammad saying, all is forgiven. We decided to make that issue right away. First, because we had to prove to the two terrorists wrong who had left the newspaper shouting, Charlie Hebdo is dead. We killed Charlie Hebdo. No, you didn't kill Charlie Hebdo, and you didn't even kill those people you assassinated, because their work is still in the newspaper. We also published their drawings. We published their articles. We made a newspaper with them too, in order to say, no, you didn't win. You didn't kill us. So that's what happened right after January 7th. That's badass.
Yeah.
That's a badass move.
Yeah, that was very cool. That after, and even I think even last year, 2 years ago, like I think it's Montpellier in southern France, like they blasted the cover on like the side of a building.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna buy it, but if you can still buy it, I don't know if it's worth it. I remember I always wanted to do that. I don't know why I never did. I wanted to buy the copy. Maybe I might do that. That the one that got them in trouble. It's pretty bizarre. I'm skimming through this here because it's pretty long.
Yeah.
But it does talk about the history of Charlie Hebdo, how of course like one of their first targets was the National Front, now the National Rally, who I actually support. And the National Rally is very popular with younger people, like the younger generation. We're seeing a little bit of that here, where Gen Z is like, I think the millennials kind of peaked the like young and progressive side, where Gen Z is also very progressive, but there's also like more of a staunch right wing side of it, instead of just like I'll vote for who my parents vote for. Because I think like in the 80s, a lot of the parents were boomers of the 60s, or like they were like very liberal, where some of the younger people growing up, like Reagan was cool, and like it was the younger generation was actually the more conservative side. I don't know if the stats all back that up, but I have to check it. I think that was most shown in was it Family Ties? Is that the one with Michael J. Fox?
Yeah,
he's like obsessed with Reagan, and his parents are like aging hippies or whatever. But so the National Rally, like National Front was, like, if you go back, they were very anti-Semitic, right? Like they were very, and that was gross. And that was Le Pen's father, and she has made them more of a, like definitely right wing and even like far right in some ways. But she also pushes back and says like they're pretty populist economically, and they just have like a more pragmatic view that, like here, they get called right wing or far right, but it's like, they're not. Like, they're actually majority 65-70% opinions of people who consider themselves moderates or even liberals.
Right.
Things on immigration and crime and that sort of stuff, and they have different issues there. But I say all that to say that they're like Charlie Hebdo attacked. I would definitely say their critics or their targets were way more on the right. These, Christians and right wingers, and again, but they actually had values and they suffered for it. I did hear, though, is it true that they were going to stop drawing Muhammad, though?
Charlie Hebdo?
Yeah.
Oh, I hope not.
I'm pretty sure that came out.
Oh shit, that would suck.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me see here. New York Times, which sets the tone for the media, not only in the U.S. but also around the world, which acts. I'm pretty sure I heard that they were going to stop doing it. It's like, look, we made our point. We published a depiction of Muhammad even after we were attacked. It's like, this isn't like, I think it's more like we don't want that to just be our thing.
Right. Well, I do remember him saying in the article about how, it's not their intention to go out of their way to piss off religious people.
Yeah.
But so maybe that's kind of what he was referring to, where it's just sort of like, yeah, we already said what we need to say on that. But yeah, I don't remember him anything specifically about that, though.
Okay. Here they talk about Salman Rushdie, of course, who was also the target of attacks. He had a literal fatwa on him, and then he was attacked like 2-3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
I think he lost an eye in the attack.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah. Biard here is saying, I'm going to repeat the argument almost word for word that was made by Salman Rushdie. Because it happens that when these writers wrote this letter to dissociate themselves from PEN America, to revoke their solidarity and say that Charlie Hebdo is a racist newspaper, first of all, Rushdie called them pussies. I can't imagine Salman Rushdie using the word pussy, but yes. Secondly, he pointed out that the overwhelming majority of them had never once opened Charlie Hebdo for the simple and understandable reason that they were unable to read a single word of French. So you had these writers posturing against something about which they knew literally nothing about. That's all there's to say about that. So it is true. Like Charlie Hebdo, that's a good point. Like it's so small. Like it's not translated in English. It's not an English Charlie Hebdo,
right?
Or it's only in French.
Right.
So yeah, these people don't even know what it says because a vast majority of them probably don't speak any French.
Right.
Secondly, oh yeah, I already read that part. So today we hear the same thing. Charlie Hebdo is now known, or the name Charlie Hebdo is known all over the world. That doesn't mean that these millions and millions of people have ever opened Charlie Hebdo or have ever bought Charlie Hebdo. It's a pity, by the way. I'd really like all those who talk about Charlie Hebdo to buy it. I'd be delighted. We would all be delighted. I am going to buy it. I'm going to look up right now.
Yeah. So I like this part here. So Spike asked him, do you worry that the Islamists are succeeding in controlling society? After the Charlie Hebdo attacks, one of your former writers, Caroline Forrest, appeared on Sky News. When she tried to show the Survivors edition with the cartoon of Muhammad, the camera panned away and the presenter apologized for causing offense. So there's still censorship on these issues. What did you think of other media organizations' decision not to show the cartoons? And then Biard says, frankly, we find it pitiful. They need to understand what blasphemy really is. It is about challenging power, challenging dogmas. It's not about mocking the believers. I can understand that a believer can be shocked or offended. I'm offended by things every day. When I go out on the street, there are a lot of things that shock me. But I'm not going to insult those who shock me. At most, I will debate with them. I will try to explain to them what I think. But blasphemy is not about intending to shock. It's about saying there is power here, and we have the right to contest this power. He also mentioned earlier, whoever gets elected to office, even if they voted for them, they're still going to do a funny caricature of them. They're still going to make fun of them a little bit, just to be like, yeah, you might be in a position of power, but you're not that powerful. So, which I think is what a good satirical publication should do.
Yeah, I will buy a copy, but this is all in 2015 where they're going for like hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Oh shit.
But you can also get it for not that much. I will buy one.
Yeah.
It's one of those things I'm like, oh, I'm going to do that. And then I just never did. All right. Is there anything else you want to talk about this. I
Not a whole lot. I just thought it was, this is, because it's the 10-year anniversary, we talk a lot about this shit. So it was a good thing to bring up, I think. Yeah, I wish they translated Charlie Hebdo. It'd be fun to support them, but I'm not going to learn French. So, so sorry, guys. That's one one video you're not going to be able to get. But I support you guys. So
yeah. This was definitely, yeah, man. In 2020, a teacher was beheaded for showing Charlie Hebdo cartoons to his pupils. Again, that was in France.
that's crazy. I remember that.
It's like a priests have been killed. I mean, when is enough enough? I mean, it's just sick to me. I don't know. I just one of those. It's one of those issues that I've never. It's like, just look at the statistics, like what percentage these guys make up, and then the attacks that they do, and it's like usually, again, you can't always tell, but it's usually like disaffected young men. It's like, why don't we just keep them out?
Yeah.
Like, let women, let older people, like, again, things that they can contribute, but it's just doesn't seem worth it.
Right.
It's just bizarre to me, because time and again it's attacks on Jews. Like France, all the Jews in France are leaving.
Right.
There's been a huge exodus, and I no pun intended or whatever. There is an exodus. I don't mean that in an offensive way. Like, but there is an exodus of Jews from France to like the U.S. and Israel and things like that. So like, we are being attacked and not protected. I don't want to go down things. It makes me very sad, because like I've said, I adore French culture and just like European culture in general. So much of it, it's like, why are you gonna let this shit change your country?
Yeah.
It's like, you have this wonderful culture, and again, people are fighting back. I mean, Le Pen's never been more popular. I think predictions have, like, she has the biggest block, and again, they went from a pretty fringe party not that long ago,
Right.
like 15 years ago. They were pretty fringe, and they've only increased and increased. I think the shitty technocrats and Macron's party, they've sided with the left so much, and there actually are some. The left and the right in France, I don't mean it's like French politics talk, but there are actually some overlap there. And because they have a parliamentary system, it's actually a lot more cohesion, where it'll be like the far left and the far right will come together and outvote like the shitty centrists who are just like technocrat, basically are Democrats, and they'll like outvote them on stuff like COVID policy, because there's left-wing arguments against it and right-wing arguments against it. But anyway, I know I'm on a tangent here, but this issue does make me. It's one of the ones I think I try not to care too much about a lot of issues, but this one really does get to me, where it's like the same with the climate activists who like destroy art it's like, you're destroying art, you're killing artists for their, like, it just makes no sense.
There was an article I almost sent you, but it was a couple of people from Stop Oil Now, I think. Vandalize the grave of Charles Darwin.
Why?
I don't know. Because
Charles Darwin.
So because in a weird way they were actually kind of defending him, or at least according to them, because they're like, I guess he's Mr. Science guy, and like climate change science. So, but I don't know why you would defame his or deface his grave. One of their quotes was something along the lines of, if Charles Darwin was alive today, he would be disappointed in humanity. So you're going to deface his grave? I don't understand like what point you're trying to make with that.
Wasn't Charles Darwin also like a huge misogynist?
Probably, yeah.
like all of these guys, like Marx was like a huge racist.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm sure. But yeah, it's just funny how, when I was a kid, I always thought activists were cool. Like, that sounds like such a cool thing. Like, you're fighting the man and you're sticking up for the little guy. Now activists piss me off. They really piss me off now.
Like the what we call the like minor in activism type activists, where it's just, you see them go from thing to thing, like whatever the du jour cause is at that time. It's we talked about this with the We've Never Been Woke episode, the Musa Garbi book, where it's just like it went from Occupy Wall Street to Black Lives Matter to Me Too and resistance Trump to Me Too to COVID. It's a very it's like it's not a coincidence that all of these people have the same views on all of these issues. And I shouldn't say all of them, because some don't, and you know what happens? They become podcasters and they're heterodox and they write for the Free Press. And they come on our show and Joe Rogan. And but like it'll be like, man, I was with them on XYZ. It'll be Jews who are with we were with Black Lives Matter, we were with gay rights, we're with Me Too, and then it's October 7th, and we're like, wait a minute, what? Like, we were with you guys on all that, and now we're I don't have to reiterate this, but
so the quote from the climate change activist defacing Darwin's grave, about, if he was alive today, he'd be disappointed in humanity, blah blah blah. It just reminds me of like when that Seinfeld episode when Kramer he's protesting against the mail, against USPS, and he's outside and he's handing out flyers, and then he's got a guy wearing like a mailman's outfit, and he's got a bucket on its head, and the lady comes by and she goes, "How come there's a bucket on its head?" And then he goes, "Oh, because we're blind to their tyranny." She goes, "Well, then shouldn't you be the one wearing the bucket?" He's like, "Yeah, move along." But then I don't understand why. What point are you trying to make with this? I don't understand. So you're in favor of saving the environment, but you're defacing, an influential scientist's grave who had nothing to do with the environment. Really? Like it's just.
It doesn't have to make. It's not rational or reasonable. It's just to provoke.
Yeah.
It's really, because it's been proven time and again that this doesn't change policy. Like no one's gonna be late for work from some climate activists and be like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna walk to work the next day because they are right. Maybe they'll walk to work. Yeah, and I don't want. So how about this? But I'm gonna recycle more, because those climate. You know what they're gonna do? They're gonna throw their detritus out the window. So it's just so that it's about bringing back the Al Garbi book, which you definitely should read, everyone listening. It's such a good book. We've never been woke. It's about social capital. It's like social credit. He calls it social capital. It's like about your inner circles, and you feel good, and you get to post on Instagram. So like the girls who would go up to people like helping Black Lives Matter stuff and take the photo and then like give the tools back to the Mexican guy working, like doing some actual work, and they would go like take the picture and then leave. So on that note, anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's it for me, Benjamin.
All right, that was a good. It's a quick app. We're at an hour. All right, sounds good.
All right, everybody, stay.
Fight the crits.